Hi, I'm Dr. Shweta Dilip and welcome back to another episode of Unbotched Therapy. We've all heard and possibly experimented with one or two body transformations in our lives. So here's a list of interesting body transformation trends that I've found across the ages. Tapeworms being ingested in order to lose weight. So back in the early 1900s, people were ingesting capsules that contained tapeworms in order to intentionally lose weight. These had a lot of side effects. For example, A, losing weight, but also malnutrition, malabsorption, and a lot of other digestive issues. Thankfully, this practice is now redundant. However, a handful of people still do practice this in certain parts of the world. Back in the day of the ancient Egyptians and Greeks, people would use crocodile dung as a part of their facial routines. The dung would be mixed with milk and honey and be applied on the skin as a facial exfoliator as well as a brightener. Similar to this, people would fill their bathtubs with donkey's milk and take a bath in it for the milk's ability to brighten up as well as to exfoliate the skin on the body. When you think of getting an X-ray, it's usually after a fall or an injury. But did you know in the 1900s, when the X-ray was brand new, a couple of doctors started using it for removing unwanted facial hair. They would sit these patients in front of the X-ray machine for hours, which definitely did cause some of the hair to go away, but also gave them some radiation burns and skin burns. Eventually, this practice was stopped, but not before some people suffered some serious damage. Belladonna, which literally translates to beautiful women of the Renaissance Italy, comes from a plant called the Atropa belladonna. During the Renaissance Italy, women would take the extract of the Atropa belladonna plant and use the oil to drop into their eyes. This would have the effect that the pupils would enlarge and give them this alluring, seductive stare. There were a lot of side effects associated with this practice. Some of them included blurry vision, which eventually turned towards blindness on a prolonged use. Back in the day, when there were no salons for highlights and lowlights, Venetian women would sit in the sun for hours with lion urine on their hair to color their tresses lighter. On another note, Romans would make their hair darker by covering their hair with a combination of fermented leeches and vinegar. This would make their hair really dark. Afterwards, when their hair was darker, they would dust a little bit of gold powder on it to show their elevated status in the society. Fast forward to recent times where body transformations as well as modifications have become slightly a bit more extreme. Let's start this off with devil lips. Devil lips or demon lips or octopus lips started off as a very harmless Instagram trend when makeup artists started changing the shape of the lips with makeup as a very harmless way to make the lips more pronounced as well as bigger. This trend turned a little more grim when people started injecting hyaluronic acid fillers into the lip to give this impression a bit more pronounced look. This has so many complications, for example, injuring the tissue of the lip as well as the area around it and infection. Hopefully, this trend is on its way out. Possibly one of the most well-known and famous Instagram beauty trend of recent times has got to be the cat eye or the fox eye. Using a combination of Botox, surgery and thread lifts, you can achieve this snatched almond eye, but it comes with a lot of side effects. You can have infection, nerve damage, prolonged headaches, scar tissue, and even visual disturbances. Sometimes it's best to avoid a beauty trend when you know there are so many side effects coming at you after the procedure. Tattoos are often representative of a rite of passage, a beautiful memory, an experience that you shared with a loved one or a special date. But what about eyeball tattoos? Eyeball tattoos or scleral tattoos are when the ink is injected into the sclera of the eye to make the eye appear more darker or even patterned in some cases. Usually, most of these procedures are done by unlicensed practitioners in very unsanitary and underground conditions. So, in many countries, these practices have now been banned. There are so many obvious side effects for this, but even blindness has been reported by so many practitioners across the world. If you're a fan of mythical movies and stories, you would notice there are a lot of characters who have elf-like ears or elven ears. In some stories, these are representative of power and grace, and in other stories of wisdom and otherworldliness. A lot of people choose to modify their ears to have these elven ears by using surgery to make their tips a bit more pointed, or to even use a prosthetic earpiece that they can glue onto their ears to achieve this final result. Before we make it to the last one, here are a few botched mentions that could not make it on the list. Starting off with bloodletting, urine therapy, collagen injection from cows, corset training, electrified face masks, facial scarring, and also leech therapy. And now, saving my favorite and my most interesting fact for the last. This trend went very, very famous in the early 2000s in Japan, and it's called Bagel Head. Bagel Head sounds exactly what you'd imagine. It involves injecting 150 to 200 ml of saline into the forehead, which gives this appearance of a bagel or a donut on the forehead. This trend, luckily, was not very well accepted, and I'm happy to say did not really get viral as much as we wanted. As with all things beauty, food, music, and fashion related, trends keep coming and going. What's most important is that you weigh the good, bad, and the ugly and only embrace what's safe and apt for you. That brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment down about what is the most interesting beauty trend you found, and we can discuss that in the coming episodes. See you! Actually, no, it's a miracle. I wonder whose job it was to collect the lion urine and the crocodile dung, and how much did they pay this guy?